Hello. So it's my turn. I get to sit in the driving seat and interview Leslie.
Oh,
so
dear.
It is our first attempt at this, although we have recorded already. We just didn't quite publish. So yeah. So anyway, Therapist in Conversation, you'll hopefully have seen us before. I'm on that, and that's why you're on this channel watching now. And I'm Angela, and I'm going to be interviewing Leslie today and telling the world how amazing she is. So Leslie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do?
Well, I'm a hypnotherapist. I deal with Ericksonian hypnotherapy, which is a permissive hypnotherapy, which basically means I kind of talk to you until you fall asleep.
I don't think I've fallen asleep with you yet, have I?
No. You see, there's different ways of doing it because we can still do it when you're awake, but actually we're kind of finagling in the background there, getting into different places.
So tell me a bit about this permissive side of things.
Well, there's only 1 in 5 people who will actually go to sleep when you tell them to. So you say you're going into a trance, and the person's looking at you going, am I? I don't think so. You know, so 4 out of 5 people will do that. 1 person will go right away. And, you know, which is why so many people actually think that hypnotherapy is not for them and that it's bunkum to a certain extent. Although we are gradually getting out there to people to understand that all hypnotherapy is self-hypnosis.
Okay.
And it's actually the person who's doing the job and doing the work. And we're not there to allow you to find your inner chicken. That's not what we do.
Inner chicken?
Yeah. You know, every so often you get people who are like, no, you're going to make me cluck like a chicken, or you're going to make me an onion. I don't want to do that. No. So no, we don't do that. That's not what we're there for.
That's the stage stuff though, isn't it, right?
Yeah, that's the stage stuff. However, people tend not to distinguish so much between them because, you know, I actually had at one point, I was standing in a queue at a supermarket, a well-known supermarket chain. And the woman in front of me was talking to the cashier girl about trying to give up smoking. So being very on the ball, I gave her my card and said, here, have a go there. Come and talk to me. And the girl, she's quite young, but the girl said, oh my goodness, you're a hypnosis person. Oh, don't look at me, because I'll go into a trance. I'll just go into a trance. Don't look at me, I'll go under. I thought, wow, you must be great at stage hypnosis, people. Because, you know, that's exactly what they want. Snap their fingers and off you go. I thought, it doesn't work like that.
So tell us a little bit more about the difference between stage hypnosis and what you do and why it's safe to come and see a hypnotherapist.
Basically, you go to a stage hypnosis situation to be entertained. And there are ways that they pick out the people that go on stage. And the way that they pick out the people that go on stage is they're looking for that 1 in 5. And those are the ones that they will take up onto the stage. If you're one of the other 4, you'll be watching what the 1 in 5 do, which is possibly why you sit and think, oh God, I'm never going to hypnotherapist. I don't want to do that. I'm not telling all my secrets. I'm not going to do, no way. So when you come to a hypnotherapist, because you have an issue, it may be something like giving up smoking. It may be something about anxiety. It could be a lack of confidence. It could be that something's missing. You're not quite sure what it is. It could be chronic illness and pain. There are so many things that are happening in life that hypnotherapy can actually help you with. Sleep deprivation, relaxation, teaching you how to meditate to a certain extent. It's all got to do with allowing you to understand that you have resources. You just didn't know you had them. And also it's permissive because you're sitting there, you're kind of making a contract between you and the person you're with. And that is that they're going to be totally safe psychologically, emotionally safe in that space, and it's all confidential. So, you know, I'm not going to ask you questions about how moral you are, or if you did something as a child that you really didn't like, or that was illegal, that you think was illegal. I'm going to ask you to just go inside, just pop inside for a while, and let's fix this issue. Let's see what's going on. And I may tell some stories, I may get you involved in some stories. And basically, it's a case of allowing the person to work the healing, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, truly. I'm just there as a facilitator, as a guide to just keep you, if I can use an analogy, like when you go bowling, and if you're not really good at it to begin with, they put child rails on.
The bumpers.
Yeah, the bumpers, so that the ball will actually hit one of the pins. So I'm kind of the bumper rail.
I like that.
I'm kind of there to guide you in so you can hit the pins that you want to hit. And sometimes you'll get an out and out strike. And sometimes it might just be a few pins that fall. But it'll be a start. And it's one of those things that when we find out what it is that's actually rooting you in one place, and we don't have to go back into history. It can be something that happened recently that brought up a triggered behavior. And once we sort that out, your universal mind, as I like to call it, because I refuse to say that it's unconscious, because wow, is it switched on? It knows everything. And your universal mind is in there, and it's saying, oh, okay, well, that happened there, but I know some places where it happened before, and I can take that right back. And it's like, going back to the bowling analogy, it's like when you hit a pin and it falls down, and it's not the ball that hits the next pin, it's that pin that fell down and it hits that pin. And then you have a kind of domino effect going on until it gets to the one point of origin. And sometimes that can be all it takes. But there are occasions where we have different packages where people are looking for building their self-confidence, building their idea of where they want to be in life, what to get rid of, how they can get rid of it, how they can stay rid of it. Because as you know, with things like smoking, addiction stuff, it can be very interesting. There's that word again. But it can be a very interesting journey to get someone to stop smoking if you don't hit the right note. Because for a lot of people, they don't understand why they smoke. They just know that they do and that they want to. And by this time, it's become a physical addiction. But there's also a psychological and emotional addiction that goes with it.
Absolutely. So you were mentioning there as well that you're not going to necessarily go back to all these stories that are secret. So it's quite a safe space then.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of the time with Ericksonian hypnosis, and you can see these on YouTube, you can do it without actually saying very much at all. The person doesn't really have to say anything because it's all happening inside. We're just actually looking at the body's representation that there's something going on. And we call these unconscious indicators. And it could be a twitch of a finger, it could be a twitch of an eye, it can be a slight nodding. But what we have done is we've connected with them. We've become in a state of rapport with them. So there's a level of trust that goes on there. And this is another reason that some people don't think that hypnosis is for them, because perhaps they've had a session with someone and it hasn't gone quite the way that they expected it to, because they didn't quite get on with the person who was in front of them. It's like anything. If you like the person, if you can get into a rapport with the person, you're going to actually be more open and more relaxed and able to actually go forward with them. You're gonna walk down the path with them a little bit. You're going to get the bowling ball out the cradle. You're going to actually look at those pins and say, I could have a go at this. And we're there to say, yes, you can. And it's going to be okay, because all you have to do is roll the ball and let it go where it needs to go. And we'll be here to make sure that when you come back out of that nice state that you've been in, you're going to feel refreshed. You're going to understand that there was work done. But we're not going to perhaps allow you to remember what was done in case you pick it all out on your way home on the bus.
Excellent. So what kind of challenges from clients do you enjoy working with the most?
There are so many things that I can say, but I love it when someone comes to me and they think it's just something, oh, well, you know, I've had this thing going on and I don't want to be angry, or I don't want to be sad about this anymore. And then we go in there and they discover that it was something absolutely not what they expected. And it takes you on a whole different journey than you realized. And watching them, watching their body language, watching the light in their face, watching the way that they change, their breathing changes, and you can actually see physically the healing taking place. You can see the issue actually dissolve in front of you. And this idea of, hey, I can do that. I don't have to be like that anymore. That was in the past and I can leave it there. Wow, that's amazing. And I think that that's something that is just, it's worth its weight in gold more than, it's priceless.
Yeah. And so when you're working with clients, how take me through a typical client journey? Is it a one session and done? Is it a combination of things? What does a client journey look like with you?
What we do is we try to help people to help themselves. And actually, more often than not, a person will tell you how many sessions they need.
Okay.
And I do use NLP with the Ericksonian hypnosis. They come together quite nicely. They're good wingmen for each other.
Well, one came out of the other, didn't it?
Well, yes. Mr. Erickson was one of the main pillars of the introduction of what NLP became. And it's more or less a case of when someone comes to you and you ask them the question, so how long do you think it's going to take you to get over this? How many sessions do you think you're going to need? And oftentimes they'll tell you.
Okay.
And that's how many sessions it takes. But it's not always that easy. Sometimes you have to winkle things out because you have to get over their reticence about coming forward and about, you know, being nervous about the inner chicken thing, and understanding that, you know, they're gifting you, and they understand that they're gifting you part of their psyche that even they are not sure about because they've managed to hide it for a long time. So most times, a lot of the session to begin with is getting to get them relaxed and understanding what they're going to do. So we go through a little bit of a chat. What is it that you would like to do today? And how do you feel about this? How do you feel about doing it that way? And I've actually had someone say to me, I don't want to go deep at all. And I said, well, you'll only go as deep as you need to. Because I'm not in control of that. You are. And actually for them to understand that they're in control of that is, you can see that, oh, okay, it's me that, okay, yeah. And if I say something wrong, you're going to come straight back up again and tell me that that was wrong. I can do that, yeah. And then you can go back down again. And it's really something that just like having a conversation. And that's all we'll do. And I will listen to and watch them, see where the indicators are, look at how their body language is changing. And we'll, after having the discussion of what the issue is to begin with, we'll go from there. And actually, we all have the resources and know the answers to the problems. We just forgot to remember that we can.
Or we've forgotten what the question is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. they come with one question and they end up with I didn't realize that wasn't the issue. And that's actually the fun part about it is like, yeah, but look what you've done. You've had 2 birds, 1 stone.
Absolutely.
You got twice as much for your money and you can keep the change. As a friend of mine used to say.
Excellent. So interesting, something that's come up for me recently, as hopefully some of the people around have watched some of our chats and everything else. I've got this thing called aphantasia.
Yes.
Which means I don't visualize. And I'm a part of a couple of groups on Facebook where it's almost like a support group, but not quite, because I don't see it as a disability. But what that means is I can't visualize. So when someone's using very visual language for me, I'm not going to go anywhere. And I really struggle from that perspective. And I've seen a lot of people come onto the group commenting about the fact that they discovered that they've got aphantasia from having worked with a hypnotherapist,
mm-hmm.
who then told them, well, you can't be hypnotized. Where do you stand on that aspect?
I don't think that's true. Because
that was the answer I was looking for.
Well, I really believe that more or less, if someone who is a hypnotherapist, and I'm going to come right out and say it, tells you that you can't be hypnotized, basically it's because you don't want to be hypnotized.
Or because they don't know how to do it.
And because they don't know how to do it, and they've jarred you out of the rapport. They've taken you right out and you're like, well, you don't understand at all. I mean, it's happened to me before when I did some regression hypnotherapy at one point. And she told me, you're standing at the top of the stairs. I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want to stand at the top. I don't do that. That's not how it works for me. Mm-hmm. And so I was totally not with her. And then she told me to do something, you're 4 years old and you're standing in front of the big video machine. In those days, we had big solid video machines, and you're rewinding the tape and you're going to erase it. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready to do that. I don't want to do that. So I was already against her. I was already tugging away and pushing away. And I was like, no, that's not working for me. And eventually I found a way to do it for myself.
Mm.
And this was before I became a hypnotherapist. However, when it comes to aphantasia, it's a case of when you listen to people speak to you, and this is why it's very important to have a conversation one-to-one beforehand and listen to them describe the issue, because it's the words that they use. It's the way that they describe it themselves. And some people with aphantasia will say, it doesn't feel like that for me, or I don't get this because it doesn't make me understand how that can happen. I don't understand how you can see pictures in your head. Doesn't work. So what we have to do as hypnotherapists and as any kind of therapist, talking therapy, we have to go back and actually look at the representation systems that people use. And I think that, what I do is say to people, you have a way that you work the world inside yourself. And I want you to actually take hold of that way and run with it. And I want you to just let me burble away. And while I'm burbling away, you're going to be going where you need to go to get what you need to get. And if I'm in enough rapport with that person, they're going to go and they're going to get what they need. And they're going to come back. And sometimes I'm going to have to lift their jaws off the floor.
Excellent. So are there any challenges that you faced where you thought that you weren't going to get anywhere with someone and then you got massive results?
Yeah, sometimes you can second guess yourself. There was one person that I was thinking about, and they seemed too up.
Okay.
They seemed too awake and too kind of almost assertive in their chair, really kind of.
You're not talking about me now, are you? I'm actually standing just now, but
no,
you're talking about me.
No. You don't do that. you kind of can put your foot down on occasions, but you don't do that. But this is when we've already gone into the issues. And also someone was training with me at the time. And so as the more experienced person, they were looking to me to show them how to do that. And they didn't get the nuances, because it's not just about talking. It's actually about mirroring and matching and doing the rapport situation. But it's also about when you see someone in the right place at the right time, saying the right thing so that they understand it, they're doing it right, they're getting it there. This person wasn't really listening as far as I could see. And it was really, I was starting to get, and I thought, no, basically what I have to do is I have to put myself into a trance and let them follow. And that was great fun. Because what I didn't realize was that once I did that, they actually mirrored what I was doing. But the person who was watching it didn't see it at all. Because they weren't watching me. They were watching only the person they thought was not being hypnotized. And it was strange because it just took one sentence. And this person was someone who was very aware of themselves, very in themselves, and thought that if they went deep, they would fall, they would do something, like burp or expend wings.
Make an embarrassment of themselves.
Yes, they didn't want to be embarrassed. They didn't want to say something silly. And so I just said to them, well, basically, just pop inside for a minute. Just go as deep as you have to now. And find what it is that you want to, that you're happy with, that you're totally comfortable with. And then we'll talk about it when you come back up. And it was just pop inside. He told me later that did it. Because it was like so simple and not sort of you are getting sleepy, you're getting deeper and deeper, which is what they expected. But the other interesting thing was that I've seen it happening when I was in my training. We had a volunteer up, and the person who was doing the training was putting this person into a trance, and we were looking for what we call unconscious indicators, which is like the flick of a finger or the wink of an eye or a nod, those kind of things. And we're all sitting, and they're up on the stage a little bit, and we're all sitting, and we could see what was going on. Her unconscious indicator was her big toe. Her big toe was flicking away like, it was going bananas. But he wasn't looking at her big toe. He was waiting to see it coming from her fingers. Because unfortunately, what had happened was he'd made an assumption that her universal mind would use her fingers, because that's how he expected it to happen. He'd forgotten to say, and by the way, when you give me an indication, I would like you to use the finger, one of the fingers of your left hand or your right hand, to show me. And we're all, look, she's doing it. And he's like, where? So yeah, there are challenges all over the place. And most of it has got to do with the client's structure of thinking and way of protecting themselves. And particularly when it comes to, there are some things that we will find are coming up. They may have come in for relaxation because they can't sleep, but there may be an underlying thing there that's actually what's bugging them in their unconscious mind. Their universal mind is trying hard to get them to see it. So there's nightmares, there's different things going on. And suddenly we see it and they won't go there. And that's okay. Then we have to draw back and say, yeah, this is where we are. Now, this is where you have a choice. And there are going to be things that are going to happen. And I want you to know that basically when they do happen, you can come and talk to me and we'll work it out. However, I know where you are. I don't know what it was that happened, and I don't need to know what happened. We can do it totally without you telling anybody about it.
Yeah, content free.
Yeah, totally content free. And it will just work because you've already started the ball rolling. But when it does work, there is going to be an occasion where quite possibly there will be tears, there will be laughter, there will be an emotional outburst of some kind. And you're going to sit there and go, what the hell happened there?
Excellent. So, as we are all living in slightly different times these days, and face-to-face doesn't happen quite as often, it has opened up the world for us to work globally. How does hypnotherapy work over video call?
Very easily, actually. There are a few things.
Even if it's their big toe that's wiggling?
Well, you see, this is it. This is why you make sure that their universal mind knows what you expect of it. And there is always, as you know, the hand raise. Because even as they're talking to you, their hand can be coming up into the screen. And you can
I asked for a subtle nod of their head as my usual go-to.
Yeah. But as you know, you got the hand lift from me, and you weren't expecting that at all. And then again, neither was I.
Very true.
But then again, I do like to go into trance, so I will go there. I will go deep. But it's one of those things that when you're there, you put a few safety situations in place, and you explain to them what's going to happen and how it will happen, or how it could happen, and then you let it happen. And what you have to do is you have to make sure that their phone's not going to ring, that the kids are out of the way, that there is someone that they know that can get into their house or are in their house in the next room, that if they do go deep, because some people really just love to go there and they will or fall asleep while you're trying to talk to them. That's a challenge. That, if they haven't heard any movement within like 5 minutes or so, to come in. But sometimes I actually ask for other member in the house's phone number, so that if there is an issue, I will be able to phone them and say, can you just go in and give them a wee shove because they've fallen asleep?
Or can you go in and reconnect the Zoom connection because their
Yes.
broadband's just dropped?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Something as simple as that. So there are different ways of dealing with it. But as I say, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So it doesn't matter that it's going through here. When you're vegetating in front of the television at night, you're in a trance. And actually, we're coming to the understanding and allowing other people to understand that we're always in a trance. We're just in different kinds of trances all day.
Absolutely. So, Leslie, how do people find you?
You can get me on Facebook, and I've got the State of Mind page. You can get me on LinkedIn. You can get me on Instagram, State of Mind, Marsh 66, and info@spiralheart.co.uk. And then there's lesliemarsh.org.
Excellent. That sounds like a new one.
Yes, it is a new one. And the email for that is support@lesliemarsh.org.
Excellent.
I did it specifically so that it was hypnosis specific.
Excellent.
Because as you know, I do quite a lot of other stuff as well.
So before we wrap up then, is there anything else on that lot of stuff that you would like to briefly mention?
Well, I am a storyteller, which does help with the hypnosis because, Erickson was a storyteller.
Wow. A storyteller?
A storyteller. Is that, or a storyteller?
Put your teeth back in, try that one again.
Yes, a storyteller. You love to tell a story or two, or 3 or 4. And so do I. And I think that stories are very important therapeutically. And I also think that when we look at the story and whose story we're telling, if it's ours or actually someone else's, that we're telling their story, living their lives, being dutiful to them, and we don't find ourselves at all being suppressed as we can be, then we can be unconfident, we can be stuck we can be living someone else's limitations. So I help people tell their own story about changing that situation. I'm also a shamanic practitioner, so stories are very, very big in that. And sometimes we can go into a hypnotic state with a drum or a rattle, which is a lot of fun, because amazingly, the drum beat makes your alpha waves change rhythm.
Interesting. Is there anything else you would like to tell the listeners about yourself or the business that you run?
Contrary to popular belief, I am quite approachable. If you've seen, well,
so let's unpack that a little bit.
Well, I was just thinking that, you know, in the Therapist for Conversation episodes, there's some situations where some people find me a little bit abrasive, perhaps.
Okay.
Or a little bit pushy. But then, you know, I'm running the show, so, you know, I've got to be to a certain extent. And you very kindly do rein me in on occasions when I go off on a tangent. So, you know.
And hopefully people have seen with me taking the reins today that you aren't quite as abrasive. And actually, there are some softer sides to you. You might hide them well.
Yeah, I think it's got to do with all that time working with animals, you know, sit, stay, stop. And that was just the vets. So basically, yeah. I mean, I do like to have a lot of fun. When you have a session with me, hopefully there will be some laughter and joy involved. But actually, I want to hear you. I want to hear your story. And I want you to come and be relaxed and to help yourself find the resources within yourself that have always been there. And as Milton Erickson very, very beautifully put, we are always more than we think we are.
Excellent. So I will just reiterate that Leslie's not as scary as she sometimes can come across. It is actually quite a pleasure to work with Leslie on a one-to-one basis or in a group. And as you're aware, Therapists in Conversation, whichever direction I need to point at to get to the sign.
Oh, no,
exactly. Somewhere. Therapists in Conversation is coming to you every month on the 5th of the month. And we will be recording our next episode soon, which I believe is episode 16. I think we've still got to completely confirm what we're talking about. But you never know when you watch this, if you then want to go to see what we then talk about next. But yeah, our episodes are coming on the 5th of every month, straight to the same YouTube channel that you will probably be able to find this recording.
And actually on the Therapist Conversation page on Facebook.
Yes. Because the both of us do tend to link and share the link to the conversations. So they're definitely there.
Yeah, just so people find it.
And on that note, if you are a fellow therapist and you would like to come along and join us in the conversation, we would love to see you there. And one of the perks of doing that is you then get an interview with the lovely Leslie where she's in the driving seat. So as I'm loving this driving seat, I know I do have to hand the reins back over at some point soon. So I'm going to say thank you very much, Leslie. Thank you for coming and actually telling us about what you do, rather than just always being the person who does the interviewing. So
yeah, it's kind of scary on this side of the board.
Hopefully I didn't make it too scary.
No,
so if you want to get in touch with Leslie, don't forget, you can rewind back and listen to where she's at. Otherwise, drop some comments in below or come and find her on Facebook or LinkedIn or whichever social media platform you prefer. That's it from us.